who, by their unrighteousness, suppress the truth. For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world, in the things that have been made. So they're without excuse. For although they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give him thanks, but they became futile, incapable of producing any useful results in their thinking. And their foolish hearts were darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools, and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images, resembling mortal man and birds and animals and creeping things. So, why did God give them over? For 3 reasons. God gave them over for suppressing God's truth. With their evil lives, they lived truth. With their evil lives, they hid truth. With their evil lives, they hid truth. These are some of the things you're going to discuss in your group, so I'm not going to go in depth on all of them, okay? So, for suppressing God's truth, for ignoring God's revelation, for knowing God is real and ignoring him. Not honoring him or thanking him. Number 3, for perverting God's glory. Exchanging the glory of God for images is like exchanging gold for dirt. Like exchanging truth for lies. Like exchanging life for death. One of the greatest honors is being created in the image of God. One of the greatest dishonors is creating God into one of ours. One of the greatest honors is being created in the image of God. One of the greatest dishonors is creating him in one of ours. As the wicked deserted God, God in turn deserted them, no longer giving them direction or restraint, but allowing them to corrupt themselves as they wished. Because they would not honor him, he let them do what they pleased to dishonor themselves. Being given over to one's sinful desires is judgment from God. What does this judgment look like? What did God give them over to? That's our next question. What did God give them over to? Romans 1:24-28 says, therefore God gave them up in the lust of their hearts to impurity, to the dishonoring of their bodies among themselves, because they exchanged the truth of God for a lie and worship and serve the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this reason, God gave them up to dishonorable passions. For their women exchanged natural relations for those that are contrary to nature. And the men likewise gave up natural relations with women and were consumed with passion for one another. Men committing shameless acts with men and receiving in themselves the due penalty for their error. Since they did not see fit to acknowledge God, God gave them up to a debased mind to do what ought not be done. So, what did God give them over to? 3 things. Desirous heart. God says, okay, hey, you want to dishonor me? Go ahead. You're going to dishonor yourself in dishonoring me. God is punishing sin with sin. The person is on an endless hamster wheel. This type of person that God gives over to their desirous heart is on an endless hamster wheel, following their own sinful, desirous heart that in the end leads to death. Following your own sinful, desirous heart is like grabbing handfuls of sand, expecting to hold rocks, but it just falls through. And he gives them over. There's no more, this is wrong. There's no more, don't do that. On the contrary, they believe what they're doing is right. Which we'll get to that later. The second thing, degrading passions. God left them to do very dishonorable actions, both men and women, by prostituting themselves, complying with sodomitical embraces in a way that is against nature, and by use of such ways and methods with themselves. Sodomitical, a word that I never thought I'd say from the pulpit, which sodomy. Some giggle, some are grossed out by it. God gave them over to that. God gave them over to that. And they're thinking, yeah, this is it. They were consumed with passions to commit shameless acts that they would receive in themselves the due penalty for their error. AIDS, for example, is probably the consequence of man's rebellion against God, rather than a special judgment from God. The due penalty is what man experiences as a result of God giving him over and letting him indulge in his sinful desires. God gave them over. There's no more, fire is hot, don't touch it. It's, go ahead, jump in. Go ahead, jump in and see. No restraint. And this is what some people want in life. No restraint, no God. Let me do me. That is not what you want in life. This is how it goes. The last thing, depraved minds. To do what ought not to be done and have no concept of right and wrong. I wonder how many people today God has just said, all right, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm going to say something that sounds like a joke, but it's not. Our current government, federal and state, the people that vote for them, abortion laws, where people will oppose you if you're pro-life. What are you? Is your mind depraved? Oh, it must be. It seems as if God let some of these people just completely go. Depraved minds are worthless, good for nothing, containing no true knowledge and judgment at all. They're incapable of approving what is truly good or disproving that which is evil. It is a mind that has lost all conscience of things. Can you see this today?